Good morning, Americans. I'm Dick Farrel, and I'm not usually on at this time, but I do have to tell you I'm filling in for Brett Winterbill, who has taken a couple of days off now for the rest of the week because of his family suffering a loss. Of course, I know I speak for everyone at NEWSMAX and every member of his audience when I say we would like to forward our deep sympathy to Brent and his family, and we wish them well and getting better when he returns on Monday. Okay? Sorry, well, that's the way it goes, but we have a show to do, and I got a lot to tell you about. Well, what are we going to cover in these next 2 hours? Well, first of all, we get to make up for the 2 days that I was off. I wasn't really off, but I didn't get to do much from 2 to 3 in the afternoon, where I am usually scheduled. We were interrupted by the president, but I must tell you, it is okay to be interrupted by this president. I am happy to be interrupted by this president. The other one, not so much. Anyway, the security team of the South Korean security team has been whacked by the flu. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. The former Virginia Attorney General, you may remember his name, Cuccinelli. He got into it yesterday on CNN over Mr. Kelly's comments on the, quote, lazy dreamers. Anna Navarro set him off. We'll get it all together for you. We have the tape. Joey Dum Dum did 9 o'clock last night on CNN. Who's Joey Dum Dum? You might not know because I call him that. And if you've never tuned into me before, you wouldn't know I was referring to Joe Biden. Joey Dum Dum. Yesterday, he went off on President Trump. We'll take a look at some of the things he said, and we'll remind folks of some of the dumb things that he has said. Plus, we have that story that's lingering in Indianapolis, an illegal alien who has been deported before, drunk driving murder of a gridiron star and an Uber driver. We'll take a look at some of that. The Democrats, speaking of immigration, have been two-faced over the issue for many years. I'm going to hopefully play for you some of their comments, and I'm talking about their leading lights, not just any old Democrats, but their leading lights on how they have said one thing about immigration on one day and then a couple of years later say something entirely different. And speaking of Democrat congressmen, there's one in Illinois who thinks that Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader, is, quote, a great human being. The man has said vicious, disgusting things about America's Catholics and Jews and white people, yet an Illinois congressman praises him. We'll get into some more of that, too. We'll take a look at today in history. And by the way, did you know that we're in the middle of Black History Month? But I got to be blunt honest with you, folks. I haven't heard, seen, or read anything this February about Black History Month, and I'm angered by it. Yeah, I look forward to Black History Month. You know why? Because when I cover Black History Month, I like to tell you about the doctors, the military heroes, the authors, the scientists, the inventors, the heroes of the Black Americans. Much of the other coverage of Black History Month just serves to continue to, I guess, promote the stereotype. All they ever seem to cover on Black History Month are singers and dancers and rabble-rousers. Why don't they ever take a few moments and recognize the real people of Black History Month that made it what it is? I will do that today. In fact, I'll introduce you to somebody you probably never heard of who invented both the traffic light and the gas mask. Yes, a black man. I'll tell you all about him later on. And I'll also tell you all about some of the reasons I think the media reviles Black History Month. They really don't want to cover it. I got some ideas on that. Korea is where the Olympics will begin in a few short days, a place called Pyeongchang. Not Pyongyang, but Pyeongchang. Pyongyang is the capital of North Korea. Pyeongchang is where the games will be played. It is in South Korea, and we have some information that nearly 300,000 Red Chinese troops have moved closer to the Korean border. The North Korean border. They don't have one with South Korea. If you've ever seen the map, you'd know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to reference a story in the current edition of NEWSMAX magazine. There's a cover story all about the dangerous threat that North Korea poses to the United States. And it's authored by a fellow who interviewed a former CIA boss. We'll talk a little bit about that, too. We'll have more on the low end or the lowest end or the lowest rated Super Bowl in quite a few years and why it was the lowest rated. And what about when sex harassment is a lie? Well, we have Ryan Seacrest speaking out about false allegations and how it has surrounded and ruined his life. Plus, we also have today the story of Steve Wynn, who is stepping down as chairman of his company because of similar sexual abuse allegations. Now, it wasn't too long ago, you didn't have information on this because it's only happened to me. One of Bill Clinton's most popular, I hate to say it, accusers was ripping yours truly on social media because I was willing to stand up for Judge Roy Moore. I won't name her name because I don't think she deserves any more attention than she's already gotten. But one of the famous Bill Clinton accusers not only went bazooey on me on social media, but threatened to have me arrested for my opinion. Can you imagine arresting someone for their opinion? That stuff only happens in North Korea. Well, anyway, we'll get into that about what's happened to Steve Wynn and Ryan Seacrest and why there are people who have accused powerful men of misbehavior when, in fact, there was no proof, no witnesses, nothing. Zero evidence, almost like the Russia probe. Zero evidence. Plus, we'll also talk about this interesting thing that happened between John Kelly and his comments regarding the Dreamers. Ken Cuccinelli told Ana Navarro he's tired of her shrill voice on live television. We'll play it for you. Navarro told him at one point, quote, "Can I answer your damn question about who cares? The people who care are the immigrants who are sick and tired of having this White House attack us and bash us on a daily basis." That was Navarro's comment that set Cuccinelli off, who last August on CNN told Simone Sanders to, quote, "Shut up," and responded, "I'm sick and tired of listening to your shrill voice in my ears." And right after that, he made a hand gesture mocking how she was speaking. The two of them continued to clash until Don Lemon jumped in, called out Cuccinelli for calling Navarro shrill. Cuccinelli responded, "Oh my gosh, you're hearing it. Look, Anna yells us all down and you tell the rest of the world to be quiet." CNN's Ana Navarro went off on President Trump and Chief of Staff John Kelly after comments made by the latter about immigrants. Do we have tape on that? I believe there should be something we can roll on that. All right, let's take a look at that exchange.
I'm sick and tired of listening to your shrill voice in my ears.
The people who are maligned on a daily basis by the President of the United States and the people who work for him. The people who see day after day that this President and this White House only focus on the bad things that immigrants do, but can never highlight a positive contribution by an immigrant. That is who cares. Maybe you don't care, but there's a hell of a lot of people in the United States who make America great already.
More and more, we're hearing the shrill voice from the far left about how wonderful immigrants are. What terrific people they've turned out to be. How they've produced so much for our country and how we owe our lives to them. And you know what? Maybe there are one or two, but I'm looking at the situation thinking to myself, you know, one or two don't make up for all the bad that we've seen. And there was some really ugly, evil. If you could skip down, we might have the story available right now. An illegal immigrant attacked a man yesterday because the man objected to him urinating in public. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than this, does it? It's somewhere way down there. You'll have to go looking. Bring us back to where we're supposed to be. We'll get to that story because it's deep in the show, and we have 2 hours to fill today. So I did want you to know about it coming up. An illegal alien beat up a man because he was concerned. He was upset that he was urinating in public. Well, all I got to tell you, folks, is if you see something like that, call the police. You know, 911's there for a reason. Someone's breaking the law. Call 911. Let them have it. Should be done just that way. All right, so you heard Cuccinelli and you heard John Kelly. John Kelly made the comments that set Ana Navarro off about the so-called Dreamers. It was the Dreamers that Kelly was talking about, and he said most of them are lazy. You know, he says they're not really what took them so long to apply for citizenship. And that's what set Ana Navarro off. And, well, Ken Cuccinelli was on the show with them. And I got to tell you, there seems to be a, and I know the liberals complain about this usually all the time. There seems to be, quote, a lack of decorum. That since President Donald Trump has come into office with his brash innuendos and his name calling and, you know, everything that they complain about Donald Trump is now it's starting to filter out. Other people are taking his lead and becoming equally antisocial. Well, I got to tell you, you know, maybe it's time the gloves came off. Maybe it's time the fake mask, the veneer disappears. Maybe it's time we tell people exactly what we think and how we are horrified by the way things are turning out and using colorful language while doing it. Joe Biden appeared on CNN Tuesday night with Chris Cuomo, and he argued that Donald Trump won't be able to undo Barack Obama policies, despite trying to, after attacking the current administration as a joke and calling out their, quote, naked nationalism. And the genuinely concerned former vice president went on a spirited monologue denouncing Trump, trying to rid the country of everything that Barack Obama has done. Quote, the president has spent his entire time since he's gotten in office trying to divide the country instead of trying to unite the country. As I said, I'm more optimistic about the chances for America in the 21st century than I have been in my whole career. Well, we have most of the, we have some of that, though. We have some of that on tape. We have Joe Biden talking last night on CNN. Let's hear his mouth a little bit. We don't want to hear too much of it.
So this president spent his entire time since he's gotten in office trying to divide the country instead of unite the country. And as I said, I am more optimistic about the chances for America in the 21st century than I have been in my whole career. We have the most advanced universities in the world where all the research comes out of. We have the most productive people in the world. We have the most agile venture capitalists. We're in a situation where we're energy independent in North America. I mean, what are we doing? We're not talking about any of the things that really matter. And all he seems to be trying to do is undo everything President Obama has done. But he's not able to do that, by the way.
Well, Biden went on to say that President Trump's presidency is a joke. When we get back, I'm going to play you some of the real jokes that turned out to be sad ones for Joe Biden while he was running for office and while he served as vice president. He said some really dumb things. We're going to hear him and prove to you that Joe Biden is really the joke and the joke is on him. We're back in a few minutes right here on NEWSMAX TV. I'm Dick Farrell in for Brett Winterbill. Don't go away. Welcome back. I'm Dick Farrell in for Brett Winterbill today. And we've been discussing Joe Biden's appearance last night on national television, which was a horror show, to say the least. But we do have lined up for you something that little Joe is going to be glad to hear again and again and again of all the stupid, inane comments he has made over the years while a U.S. senator, while a presidential candidate, and as a vice president. And I'm sure that we'll be having those around for a long time, especially if he decides he wants to run for president in 2020. Just imagine we could play Joe Biden's greatest hits all day. And if people think they want that guy for a president, then they really need to think again. However, we'll get that ready for you a little later on. Meanwhile, casino mogul Steve Wynn stepping down of CEO at Wynn Resorts, the latest bit of fallout from the recent bombshell report about allegations of sexual harassment against him. Now, I made the prediction, maybe some of you might have heard it back in December. I made the prediction last year, late last year, that come the new year, many of the big CEOs of huge corporations are going to find themselves in deep hot water with sexual abuse allegations, because I thought that it was a firestorm, a groundswell. It's like a tsunami going on. Nothing can get in its way. Simply accuse somebody who has deep pockets and you'll get their money. And I said, it's coming. And here's Steve Wynn, living proof. Now, the Wall Street Journal reports that he stepped down as RNC finance chair as well, amid questions over whether Republicans would give back the money he gave them. Wynn Resorts has announced in a statement that he's stepping down. The board of directors reluctantly announced that it accepted the resignation as the CEO and chairman of the board, and they appointed Matt Maddox, currently the president of the company, and Boone Wason as non-executive chairman. Quote, now, it's with a collective heavy heart that the board of directors of Wynn Resorts accepted the resignation of our founder and CEO, Steve Wynn. Wynn, of course, an industry giant. He's a philanthropist and a beloved leader and visionary, he went on to say, and played a vital role in the transformation of the Las Vegas entertainment destination. Now, what exactly did Steve Wynn do? I don't know, folks. We don't have any evidence, any witnesses, any intel. Just he's been accused. All it takes is a mere accusation. And so back in October, when the accusations were flying fast and furious against Judge Roy Moore, I took to the Facebook and Twitterverse to say, wait a minute. Roy Moore has run 8 times for office and won each time. Never before has anyone raised any question about sexual impropriety. Isn't it strange that all of a sudden now Roy Moore is facing these allegations that surfaced 40 years ago after being wrapped up for 40 years? I thought it was strange. And I went on to say on Facebook that it apparently is something really wrong with a system that allows an accuser to simply make an accusation and automatically the accused is guilty. Well, one of Bill Clinton's accusers, I'm not going to name her because she would love me to do it, took me to task over my comments, demanding an apology, calling for my arrest, calling me all kinds of strange, peculiar names about porcine creatures. Yes, porcine. In case you don't know what that means, next time you open up a package of bacon, that's porcine. So this woman who was allegedly attacked by President Clinton and later on told her story and even showed up at the Republican National Convention in 2016, she was just livid against my assertion that there are some women that would say they were sexually attacked simply because they wanted the attention, a so-called Munchausen-type syndrome. She believes that that's impossible. It doesn't exist. In fact, I'm a bleepity bleep for suggesting that it does. Well, along comes Ryan Seacrest. Here's a famous entertainer, a fellow who has a huge following, who has been at the forefront of many entertainment venues for years and years. I don't particularly know much about him. I don't care to. I don't follow him. I don't think personally that he's a great talent or somebody, you want to drop that down a little for me, or somebody who's fantastic at what he does. He got a lucky break and he's doing well. God bless him. I don't really pay much attention to Ryan Seacrest, except maybe on New Year's Eve. Anyway, Seacrest was accused in November of sexual misbehavior. And during the height of the, quote, Me Too movement, his situation was a little different than that of, let's say, Kevin Spacey or Harvey Weinstein. In a strategic move, Seacrest released a preemptive statement both announcing and denying the accusation. He called the accusation, which hadn't been released yet, reckless. He pleaded his innocence and said he would cooperate with any investigation to the matter. Recently, someone that worked as a wardrobe stylist for me, he said, nearly a decade ago at E! came forward with a complaint suggesting I behaved inappropriately toward her, Seacrest said at the time. If I made her feel anything but respected, I am truly sorry. Seacrest, who hosted E! and American Idol and is the current host of Live with Kelly and Ryan, was one of the most famous men accused at that time. The story went global. Details of the stylist's allegation never became public, but Deadline, that's an online magazine, reported that she requested a substantial amount of money to keep quiet. Oh, doesn't that sound like Dick Farrell's prediction from last December? Anyway, opening an investigation into the claim, Seacrest declined to say anything more. Now, last week on Thursday, More than 2 months after the allegations were splashed across the newspapers and all over cyber world, he said outside counsel found insufficient evidence that Seacrest had done anything wrong, according to the Associated Press. Seacrest penned a guest column for Hollywood Reporter detailing his experience, and by doing so, he effectively became one of the lone voices from the other side of the high-profile sexual harassment allegations to share his story. Quote, "I do not take things for granted. Every day I am living my childhood dream because of the efforts of so many other people," Seacrest said, adding that he always tried to express gratitude for the unwavering support of my loved ones and the team. So to, quote, have my workplace conduct questioned being gut-wrenching to me, he knew that many would like to lump him in with all the others. I knew, regardless of the confidence I had, that there was no merit to the allegations, and my name would likely soon appear on, on the list of those suspected. Now, this makes my point. There are people that make the allegation entirely for several different reasons. Either they do it because they believe they can conduct some kind of extortion over some wealthy man. They do it to focus attention on themselves. And then there's the third, most insidious of all cause. Women who are deprived of any attention. Some who are just desperate for attention from particular men of different types will go out and do this to get that attention. That's a protest against being ignored. And let me tell you about being ignored, folks. There is no greater indignation on planet Earth than being ignored. And a woman being ignored finds a way to use the system to her advantage by going ahead and attacking some wealthy, powerful man and coming away with a victory simply without any evidence or witnesses. Boy, that all sounds like a great package together, doesn't it? Anyway, coming up, I'm Dick Farrell for Brett Winterbill today. We have much more to discuss. We'll take your phone calls about this or anything else, and maybe you want to, delve into it, about that peculiar woman who once accused Bill Clinton of sexual impropriety attacking me on social media. Maybe you want to bring that up. Our number is 1-877-NEWSMAX. Easy to do. 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's where we are, and that's where you should be. Also coming up, we'll talk more about the Korean situation and the way all these security men have suddenly turned sick. Maybe it has something to do with all the North Koreans who showed up last week to practice. 500 of them. Maybe some of them brought a little disease along. Well, we could talk about that, too. There's much more ahead. It's a great Wednesday. I'm glad to be here with you and glad you can make it here on NEWSMAX TV. So whatever you do, just don't go away. I'll be right here for another, looks like an hour and a half, and we'll have lots of fun, so stay there. Christie and Giuliani in the West Wing. Boy, that's what I was saying right after Election Day in 2016. The team's got to be Christie and Giuliani and Trey Gowdy, maybe. Those are the people that should have been in charge of pushing the buttons and locking them up. I'm just so disappointed with Jeff Sessions. But, hey, we're just observers. All right, we have a phone call, I do believe. We're going to talk to Franklin. Where's Franklin calling from? He's in New York? Well, good for you, Franklin. Good morning. You're on the Dick Farrell NEWSMAX TV program. Are you there, Frank? He may be gone. People don't like to wait for me. He's gone. Well, too bad. C'est la vie. All right, where are we going? I did want to talk to you about last night. A chart, my friend, because it would be good if we can go right there right now. The special election held yesterday in Missouri takes one more away from the GOP majority in the House of Representatives. But more importantly, the liberal la-la land folks are calling it, a quote, another indication and rejection of Donald Trump and his policies and Republican racism. Of course, ask any liberal, Republicans are all racists. Even the black ones. Yeah, I got to love it when they call Tim Scott, a Republican, the senator from South Carolina, call him a racist. He looks in the mirror and says, what is it? They hate guys with black eyes? Is that what it is? Blue eyes? And then there's, of course, Dr. Carson. Dr. Ben Carson called racist because he's a Republican. He's wondering, what is it? Is it I'm racist against guys with clean-shaven faces? Is that what it is? Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder. The word racist has been touted about for so long and so much, overused, overdrawn, overworked, overplayed, that it really no longer has any meaning. Well, I'm waiting to hear there was racism in the Super Bowl. I'm waiting for that. That's coming soon. The Eagles win their first Super Bowl, but the television said, Only 103.4 million viewers. The biggest TV audience of the previous Super Bowl, previous lowest number, was in 2009. NBC pointed out that the last time the Patriots and Eagles met in the big game, it only drew 86.1 million viewers, but that was in 2005. Of course, there were less viewers then. Super Bowl ratings tended to be lower. Ratings for big games were actually rising for the last decade until they saw a decline, rather. Wasn't entirely unexpected given the viewership of the NFL has endured very little over the last year. NBC points out that the margin between Super Bowl overnight ratings and NFL playoffs was the largest ever. Basically, the big game performed really well relatively to the popularity of the season. Also, in some good rating news for NBC, the network presented This Is Us had the biggest post-Super Bowl entertainment telecast rating in 6 years. But people are fed up, they're tired, they're angry, they're angered and upset by the way our flag, our national anthem, and our police and firefighters and soldiers have been treated by many of the players of the NFL. Yes, there are good ones, but there are lots of bad ones. We're coming back with a whole lot more. My name's Dick Farrell. I've been here for Brett Winterbill for the next couple of days. Hope we can get along real well. Remember, you can call us, 1-877-NEWSMAX. We'll talk to you about whatever's on your mind. Just stay right where you are. I'm coming right back for you. Welcome back. I'm Dick Farrell in for Brent Winterbill. Glad to have you along here on NEWSMAX TV. And where have we been so far today? We talked about Steve Wynn stepping down as the CEO of Wynn Resorts on the strength of accusations of his sexual misconduct. And we contrasted that with Ryan Seacrest, who outwardly just rejected accusations about his behavior. And somehow, magically, Ryan Seacrest is unscathed. His career continues to march forward. Nobody's asking him to step down, and the accuser has vanished. Just like all of Judge Roy Moore's accusers. They all disappeared, never to be heard from again, after waiting 40 years to announce their anger at him. Things that happened when they were 16, 17, and 18 years old. And now, of course, his candidacy was lost in an election that was stacked against him because of fake, phony, fraudulent, unproven, and lack of evidence accusations. I'm still appalled by what happened December 12th, and I'm not going to let anyone forget it. Let's go to the caller in New York. Franklin, you're on with Dick Farrell on NEWSMAX TV. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you 3 quick questions. First, I enjoy your show. I never saw you before, but I really like you. You're on the ball.
Well, just remember from
Mueller's investigation.
Just remember from
when is it going to end?
The investigation, it will end when it runs out of money.
End with all this stuff going on.
The investigation by Mueller will end when it runs out of money, which, of course, will be never. You heard today that the president said he would rather have had Chris Christie, a prosecutor.
I saw that on your show, but you know what? Rather doesn't mean anything because he's still there.
Well, maybe there'll be a shakeup coming. You know, maybe
I hope so. Also, too, you said somebody lost in Minnesota, a Republican. Did he lose badly, or what happened there?
We have the story, and we're going to get to it. There was a special election. I think it was Missouri's 9th district last night, and the Republican was beaten in what was a red district, a district that was won by Trump. And he was defeated last night. It was like some 69-year-old guy beaten by a 27-year-old guy.
That's it. That's scary.
Yeah, scary is a good way to put it. I agree.
It's scary.
And your third question, Franklin? And your third question?
One more, I'll leave it alone.
Go ahead.
Jail time. What's going on? The jail time, you think? Somebody going to jail for what's going on? Or to just say retire and collect your pension?
Well, it depends upon the crime. It depends upon the victim. It depends upon who the assailant was. Name somebody. Fill in the blanks and we'll make a determination.
The FBI fellas that he got involved with trying to, sabotage Trump getting into office.
Well, first of all, a whole bunch of FBI folks need to be put behind bars, starting with this creepy guy, Strzok, and his girlfriend. Yeah. Those two, they're the ones that are the leading point of the sword, followed by the administrators behind them, Rosenstein. This other guy, Weissman.
He's still around doing the same job. That what aggravates me. Here's a guy that shouldn't even be where he is now, and he's still there. I mean, what the hell's going on here? It's like, it's okay. Just make believe it didn't happen. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I love Trump. I voted for him. I live in New York, so he took a bat there. He got 35% of the vote. Everybody's liberal around here, but that's how it goes. But I can't understand why this guy's still bouncing around.
It's a good question, and I agree with you. I can't understand why he's still, quote, bouncing around either. Franklin, thanks for the call. All right. Speaking of congressmen who misbehave, a congressional Democrat in Illinois is embracing Louis Farrakhan. It just recently turned out that a 2005 photo of Farrakhan and Obama recently surfaced. The picture was kept a secret by the photographer who took it because he believed it would, quote, hurt the political future of the then Illinois representative. Danny Davis defended National of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, he's the Democrat in question, as, quote, an outstanding human being. Farrakhan is known for his anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-Catholic views, and even the left-wing Southern Poverty Law Center has acknowledged Farrakhan's history of racially extreme comments include blaming Jews for the September 11 attack, saying white people deserve to die, and he praised Adolf Hitler as a very great man. Funny about that, isn't it? Because if Hitler were alive today, he'd make a lampshade out of Louis Farrakhan. Also emerging was former President Obama smiling with him at the Congressional Black Caucus in 2005. The journalist who took the photo suppressed its publication. Davis, who has been in Congress since 1997, defended Obama for meeting with Farrakhan and was open about his own ties to the hate group, the Nation of Islam, according to Daily Caller on Monday. Quote, I personally know Farrakhan, and I've been to his home, done meetings, participated in events with him. Davis told the D.C., I don't regard Louis Farrakhan as an aberration or anything. I regard him as an outstanding human being. Now, my one question is, can you imagine if Trey Gowdy said the very same things about David Duke? How fast and how far would Trey Gowdy be run out of town on a rail, tarred and feathered, and never to be heard from again? Double standard, boys and girls. One way for one side, another way for the other side. Yet Dr. King died on the cross of civil rights to make us all equal, and yet you see how equal we really are. Back in a bit. Stay tuned. We're NEWSMAX TV. I'm Dick Farrell. Don't go away. In for Brent Winterbill. It's still morning all across the USA, so good morning to you. Glad you could be here. NEWSMAX TV. I'm Dick Farrell in for Brent Winterbill. And let's go to the phones and talk to Sean. Sean in Nebraska, is that you? Do we have Sean lined up? Or should we let's go to Robert in Louisiana. Robert in Louisiana, can we get him? Well, they both went away.
Hey,
Robert,
Mr. Farrell.
Is this Robert?
Yeah, Mr. Farrell, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to hear from you.
Hey, look, I just wanted to talk about this. All I'm hearing about this rank and file isn't as bad as everything else going on. I'm a Baptist minister out of Louisiana that ran for sheriff as a Republican. I went up to Hawaii afterwards. And I only had $300 in the race, but I kept a sheriff that I didn't think was adequate from winning. And I went to Hawaii to study law, became real active with the Tea Party, became one of the most produced, television producers on public TV there. And I came back home. I started doing some civil law activism, writing to judges that I thought was harming innocent people.
So what happened?
Just saying, hey, look, these people, this is a case where you take a look at it for me. Well, they end up coming at me saying I committed mail fraud. Never put a lien on anybody, saying I was putting seditious liens, said I was a sovereign citizen, came down here, arrested me without a signed warrant from a judge. The warrant was signed by a clerk of court, all right? Took me up, held me for 3 days, wasn't able to speak to anybody, brought me into what they're calling the United States District Court for the Western District of Louisiana. I started asking, I said, hey, do you have some signed affidavits? Can I see the warrant? Can I see something? And they grabbed me, took me out of there. They started torturing me in the back room. They actually choked me out and electrocuted me.
Electrocuted?
While I was tied to a chair. Oh, yeah.
Right. Have you gotten have you gotten a lawyer yet?
Oh, no, man. This was 3 years ago.
Did you get a lawyer 3 years ago?
They brought me all the way to Utah. Now, they forced an attorney on my person. Now, the only way you can do that is under Title 10, Section 838, subsection D. And that's a military court. So that means they brought me into because they claimed I was a sovereign citizen. And what's funny is while I was running for sheriff, I reported some abuse by a mayor.
Robert, we've got to go. I'm sorry to hear your story, but I'm sure that a good lawyer might have been able to handle it a little better than you did by yourself. We're back in just a bit on NEWSMAX TV. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Coming in the next hour, I want you to stick around for some good stuff. We'll take a look at Black History Month, and I've noticed that the liberal media has done away with Black History Month. You see what happens when the liberals get control of stuff? And I'll argue in favor of why we need to have it. Also, we'll look at today in history, the GOP loss of a seat in special election in Missouri. We'll do that. We'll take a look at Bitcoin. A major economist from the Clinton administration calls Bitcoin and others like it a scam. We'll hear about that, too. Stock market is up about 156 points last I checked, so 2 good days in a row now on Wall Street. We'll cover some of that, too, and there's much more to tell you about North Korea, South Korea, the Korea Olympics, and all of that straight ahead. And we also have a news update with Miranda Khan, so stay right where you are. You're at NEWSMAX TV, where there's always something great coming up, whether I tell you about it or not. See you in a bit. Don't go away. Hello, I'm Dick Farrel. Glad you could come for the ride today and for Brent Whitterbill. And I'll be here the rest of the week for his time slot, 10 to noon Eastern. And then I return next week to my original time slot, 2 to 3 Eastern, where I hope you'll come and join me. Coming in this hour, well, we have another example of liberal fascism. Yes, indeed, a liberal college has once again said, white people, you have less rights or no rights. We've come full circle. But I'm going to honor Black History Month. We'll take a look at the Sarah Sanders slamming Senator Jeff Flake yesterday. Quote, unquote, I don't care what Senator Flake has to say. I love her. And we'll introduce ourselves to the most deported illegal immigrant in the country. Deported 144 times. Yeah. We'll take a look at February 7 in history and those cryptocurrencies that a former Clinton economist has said are a scam. We'll get into all that and more. But right now, let's go back to our phones and say hello to some folks who've been waiting. Sean in Nebraska, you're on the Brent Whitterbill Show with Dick Farrel on NEWSMAX TV.
Hi, Dick.
Hi, Sean.
And what's really bothering me is these FISA judges. Why aren't we finding out who these people are?
Because they're secret.
And I mean, any judge that I know would have had warrants out for perjury, obstruction of justice, and everything, and many, many other violations. These people signed these papers. I don't understand what these judges are doing.
The Foreign Intelligence Court, as it's called, FISA, F-I-S-A, they're, when they were created by Congress, they were allowed to remain secretive and secret. They have the unusual right to conceal information from the American public because of the nature of their task. Consequently, that's why you don't know the judges' names. You don't get to see their rulings. And who knows? They could literally get away with crime without us knowing about it. Yeah, the FISA court is a secretive court. I think it's time to do away with it.
You and me both. Thanks, Dick.
Glad you called, Sean. And Jerry in Virginia, you're next on with Dick Farrell. Hello on NEWSMAX TV. Jerry, are you there? Hey, Jerry, what's the story? I guess we lost Jerry. We used to have an ad in New York 50 years ago on New York media where a guy was promoting an electronics store, and they would have really low prices on what was state-of-the-art electronics at that time, and his name was Jerry, and it would always be, "What's the story, Jerry?" I thought maybe we were going to meet with Jerry today, but I guess not. Maybe next time, Jerry. All right, Fred Bauman, a professor of political science at Kenyon University, proclaimed last week to be, quote, a panel and its audience. The panel had been convened to discuss the retraction of a professor and a playwright named Wendy MacLeod and his latest play, The Good Samaritan. MacLeod's work had been circulated to the students and community with the intention of production coming in early April. The show centers on the experiences of a Guatemalan illegal immigrant working only a few dozen miles away from the university on an egg farm. MacLeod explained in an email to the campus about the play. The characters, quote, had been working without pay and living in dire conditions. The Good Samaritan is based on a true story, and MacLeod attempted to unearth it in her work with humor and, in her words, quote, bring the repressed to light. Her play posits satirically what might happen if one of these immigrants escaped from the egg farm and found their way to the school. Well, following the circulation of the play's transcript, brigades of students joined by some professors and campus administrators pressured, complaining about the race of MacLeod, the author. I personally take issue with The Good Samaritan because it's yet another narrative written about a person of color from the uninformed perspective of a white academic. He claimed that the play was an exercise in cultural hegemony with heavy notes of white savior complex. In the Kenyan student newspaper, one professor claimed that after reading The Good Samaritan, she had identified 40 instances of ethnic insensitivity. Among the charges of insensitivity might be a character's name, Juan Deere, and improperly rendered Spanish, D-E-E-R-E, which at times resemble Italian. A teaching associate went a good deal further, calling the play unapologetically racist and mocking. It's an act of violence, dehumanizing, degrading the suffering of immigrants during their coming to this country, and the many acts of racism and violence that members of the Latino community endure every day. Folks, it doesn't end there, but I've had enough of it. Once again, a liberal college campus has decided free speech can only go so far. These are the very same people, these are the very same ones who have, for years and years, been the self-anointed, self-appointed guardians of our First Amendment right. Their First Amendment to them was absolute. Now, suddenly, someone comes along with something that may skewer their ideas of sensibility, and right away they slam the lid down on it. Folks, the liberals are the real fascists and Nazis, folks, and they prove it every day. There's one great example. We have a caller. Where's the caller calling from? David in North Carolina. Good morning, David. Glad you could be on NEWSMAX TV.
Yes, sir. How you doing today, sir?
Great, if not better.
That's good. I'm going to make it quick. I'm sick and tired of hearing about all these special investigations and nobody's going to prison, just like with Hillary Clinton with the email scandal and everything else. If I'd have done just one fraction of that, I would be sitting in Fort Leavenworth today looking at a 30-year sentence.
Well, I want to tell you.
Taxpayers' money, sir. Somebody needs to go to jail. And I'm so glad, I want to make this final point, I'm so glad that you brought out Judge Roy Moore. Since he lost the election, where is the accusers at?
Hiding under a rock from where they came. I challenge them now to come forth and show us the proof. I'd like to hear some of the proof, which we never got to hear. And I worried when that happened that perhaps maybe other Republicans running for office in lesser elections might be faced with the same charges. Since, of course, if you can't prove it and there's no evidence, how can the charge have any validity? I mean, it just flies in the face of what this country was founded upon. But I do agree with you, sir. Thanks for the call. This is NEWSMAX TV. I'm Dick Farrell. You can talk to us if you like. 1-877-NEWSMAX. Very simple. Let's go to Maryland, where Ken has picked up his phone to talk this morning on NEWSMAX TV. Good morning, Ken.
Hello. Hi. How you doing this morning?
I feel good, like James Brown used to say.
Anyways, back in the 80s, I was involved in selling weed. And the FBI and DEA kicked down my door. They didn't find nothing, but they found a pot plant on my balcony.
Did you know it was a pot plant?
They planted evidence and took me to court about it. But the judge at that time wasn't bought and paid off by the leftists, so he saw through the corruption and threw it out. So for people saying that the FBI is only corrupt at the top, it's throughout. And I had to pay attorneys so I wouldn't go to jail for this. What they did is I had a plant on my balcony, a pot plant. And
a hemp plant. That would be a hemp plant.
Okay, whatever.
All right.
But they weighed the soil and said it was...
This happened?
I think this was like 1987. I got the paperwork here.
31 years ago. Those days are thankfully long gone. You could probably have your pot plant right out in front of your house and nobody would notice it anymore. It's unfortunate that you had to go through that, and I'm real sorry to hear that it happened to you. But at least in the end, justice was done. It was dismissed, right?
That's not the point.
Well, but it is the point because you didn't have to go to jail.
Because it's happening to Trump right now.
But you didn't go to jail, right? You don't have a record.
But look what it cost me.
Well, then you could sue them for malicious prosecution. I don't know what your lawyer had to say about that, but, you know, there are avenues of recourse. Anyway, thank you very much for the phone call. We go right to Texas now for Joe, who has something to say. Good morning, Joe. Glad you could join us.
Hey, Dick, good day. Good day. This is old Joe in Hernandez in Lubbock, Texas. We Trump voters being called deplorables by Hillary. I say to Hillary, how you like us deplorables now? It comes to light, Dick.
Ultimately,
amen.
Ultimately, you are correct. At some point, everything comes to light. And the attempt by the Democrat National Committee and the Hillary campaign to present false evidence to the FISA court so that they could eavesdrop on a guy named Carter Page, it's coming up to blow up in their face because now we see the reality of the real collusion that took place between Hillary and the Russians. That's where the real collusion was and is still going on. We have news today that informs us that the Russians are planning to interfere with the 2018 congressional elections on behalf of the Democrats. So what you're saying is correct, Joe. Thank you for the call. Glad you were there. By the way, updating the news, did I just see this go across our screen? Another Amtrak problem today? A New York-bound Amtrak train, quote, broke apart? Hopefully we'll have more details on that as it becomes available. That was from yesterday? So that would be, let's see now. You have the train that crashed into the truck with the GOP members on board. You had the Seattle area train wreck. You had the South Carolina train wreck. And now this one headed to New York. 4 wrecks on the Amtrak trains. Funny thing how nobody ever dares say the T word, although I suspect it could be a possibility. No one dares says the T word. Terrorism. We'll have to find out more. All right, straight ahead, we're going to find out about Bitcoin. The market is responding well today in the 150-plus gain area. We also have a little talk about, hopefully, Joe Biden's greatest hits. I've got that lined up for you. Hopefully we get to that later. Black History Month, Today in History, and much, much more, and more of your phone calls. 1-877-NEWSMAX. If you want to talk about something, go right ahead. I'm Dick Farrel, in for Brent Whitterbill, who's away as a result of a family tragedy. He'll return next Monday, and I will go back to where I came from on Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, here on NEWSMAX TV. And additionally, there's something I wanted you to see. This publication, NEWSMAX magazine, there is a great story in there written by a former CIA director who says that the North Koreans could cause massive casualties in North America, not with a nuclear bomb, but what they call an EMP. That's an electronic device that can interfere with our electrical grid. Back in a jiffy on NEWSMAX TV. Don't go away. Welcome back, or welcome in to Dick Farrell on NEWSMAX TV. Glad you could be here. You might recall that during yesterday, well, between 2 and 3 yesterday, I was supposed to be on the air, but instead we had the President's Roundtable on immigration and that special fun-loving gang called MS-13. Well, during that conversation yesterday, if you were watching, and I was, because I was intently focused on it, I didn't care whether I was on or not. The President had something important to say. I was glad to be able to listen to it. You might recall him saying something about the catch and release program of illegal aliens who are, quote, caught and released. Do we have, could we roll tape on the President yesterday at the meeting? All right, here's Donald Trump yesterday about the catch and release program and some of his colorful ways of telling us about it.
They come back as fast as we take them out. Different ones, not even the same ones, different ones, but they come back. And we need these immigration laws changed. If we're just not going to be able to continue to do this. They just come in so fast, so easy. And then you have catch and release. You catch people and you have to release them right away. Not another country in the world has the stupidity of laws that we do when it comes to immigration. And if we don't get them changed, this isn't politics. This isn't Republican and Democrat. This is common sense. So it has to be taken care of.
And now let me introduce you to exactly an example of what the President was talking about yesterday. There is an immigrant fellow who has been deported 144 times. Do we have that story up there? I want to be able to talk about this fellow. Here we go. He's the world's most persistent illegal immigrant, a Mexican who managed to get deported. Did I say 144? I meant 44 times. 44 times in the last 15 years, which means he managed to sneak back across the border at least that many times. The runner-up was ousted 40 times from 2001 to 2015, and number 3, 4, and 5 on the list were deported 35, 34, and 31 respectively. According to data provided by the Washington Times by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, while those are the most extreme cases, repeated illegal immigration went back in the news this week after police said a twice-deported man while driving drunk near Indianapolis on Sunday when he plowed into a pro football player, Edwin Jackson, and his Uber driver, killing them both. President Trump tweeted about the disgraceful death and called the killing one of many such preventable tragedies. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, one of the Republican chief negotiators in the current immigration debate, said the fatal crash should be a wake-up call. Quote, people are dying as a result of criminals taking advantage of our porous nature of the border, and we need to stop. President Trump, at a roundtable discussion yesterday, you just heard him say, slammed the catch and release policy. All I can tell you, folks, is it's insane. No other country in the world allows itself to be invaded. Why are we allowing it? You try to break into another country. You name the country. I'll tell you what happens to you. First of all, you can't get into Poland, Czechoslovakia. Well, there are two, the Czech Republic or Well, the other one, there are two of them now, right? The Czech Republic and its neighbor, and Hungary. They just won't let you in anymore. Mexico, you break into Mexico, you go to jail. Automatic jail for anyone getting into the country illegally. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Why can't we have such a law? And why do we allow Mexican politicians to tell us that our immigration laws are currently racist when, in fact, that's what theirs are? Do you know that? Did you know that many of the people escaping from Central America while crossing through Mexico are arrested for illegally entering Mexico? Yeah. And like the president said, how can we allow ourselves to be continually invaded? No other country on the planet permits it. And in Australia, you try to go to Australia, I know they got a natural border called the Pacific Ocean. You try to go to Australia, if you don't have $50,000 on deposit in an Australian bank, out you go. That's the reason why we're paying more at the pump now, as much as 75 cents more than we were a mere 4 months ago. Sickening, but it's the way it is. We do have the Bitcoin thing going on. Do you know about Bitcoin and Zcash and, well, currencies like they're called Ether and there are a whole bunch. Bitcoin is the most popular. Well, we have Nouriel Roubini, a former Clinton administration economist, who draws out the noise of this, what he calls scam. He's a former NYU economy professor at the Stern School of Business, and he has many other qualifications. I think he's viable as an expert on this situation. Let's hear what Nouriel Roubini has to say about these so-called cryptocurrencies.
Blockchain is really a revolutionary industry. It's been around for 10 years. The only application is Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies that are a scam. And in the early days of the internet, people say, well, in the early days, you had HTML, you have web, you have email, you had lots of other things. You had millions of applications and hundreds of millions using them. After 10 years, what they can offer in the blockchain space, nothing. Just a bunch of cryptocurrencies that are a scam.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be investing in Bitcoin anytime soon. Just a thought, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, the Dow up this morning so far, but it's always on a roller coaster. You got to expect it. In fact, I don't have it for you. I wish I had. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin was asked during a press conference about the outrageous losses on the stock market earlier this week. And he, as speaking to the reporter, he said, well, you know, I don't usually check my phone while I'm at a press conference. There he is. But he said, hey, seems to me you're all wet because the stock market's up 500 points. So much for those reporters that ask those so-called tough questions. You know, they ought to do their homework more often and have their mommy check it. Might help. By the way, if you want to talk about something, in case I haven't told you, see that number down at the bottom right about where my tie clip is? That's our phone number. You can call and talk on the show. I've been listening to you. After all, have you heard me say no to anybody yet? I never say no. We got time to roll this. Yesterday, another interesting thing in Washington, Sarah Huckabee Sanders lost her cool yesterday with the U.S. Senator Jeff Flake. Apparently, Flake was moaning and groaning about the way the president treats the media. And so a reporter came up during a daily press conference with the press secretary, and, well, here, let's hear what Sarah Huckabee had to say to him. Oh, it's not there. I'll have to save that for you for later, folks. We do have it, but it's hiding. Look, I'm a part-time magician. Understand this. I'm a part-time magician. I have yet to become a full-time one. The reason I'm a part-time magician is because I can make things disappear, but I can't make them come back. That's why I'm a part-time magician. So far, I've lost the tape on Sarah Huckabee Sanders telling, I don't care about what Jeff Flake has to say. It's about time we had somebody who had cojones at these press conferences. It's high time we had an opportunity to hear somebody say, this ain't the way it is. I know being polite was great, but it doesn't work. Now it's time for the real McCoy. Hey, Black History Month. Can we have a roll on today's hero for Black History Month? Sure we can. His name is Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan didn't have much of an education. In fact, he left home when he was a teenager, and applied himself. Do we have any of that Garrett Morgan stuff there? There he is, Garrett Morgan. You can thank him. Here is an African-American man who created the traffic light. That's right. When he saw these newfangled, funny-looking things, he also made the gas mask. When he found these so-called automobiles crashing into horse-drawn carriages at the turn of the last century, he said, I got to do something about it. And Garrett Morgan created one of the most important inventions of the entire century, the traffic light. And he did it without any welfare, food stamps, liberals feeling sorry for him. He didn't even go to school, and he attained this greatness. Hats off to our hero for Black History Month, Garrett Morgan, a great American no matter what his color is. Welcome back. I'm Dick Farrell. I am not Brent Whitterbill, but he'll be back on Monday, and I'll be back where I belong, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Before we go to the caller, we're going to go to Gary in Alabama in just a moment. I just wanted to finish up on where I left off with Black History Month. Morgan Freeman has railed against Black History Month, complaining that, you know, it's everybody's history. It's not just black history, it's white history. I understand his perception of that, but I think, and this is my opinion, I want to label it as such, that Black History Month is an important institution that should not be forgotten or shunted aside. But the liberal media is doing that now because liberals are saying, oh, well, you know, it's not good. I'll tell you why they say it's not good. Because they don't want to accentuate African-American accomplishment. They would prefer to tell you about singers, dancers, boxers, and ball players, and criminals, before they'll tell you about scientists and explorers and doctors and military heroes. And I like to bring those people out for African American History Month because of the wonderful things they did. Earlier, I pointed out that Garrett Morgan created the traffic light, the gas mask, and several hundred other patents. Garrett Morgan was a prolific inventor in the beginning of the 20th century, and we owe a great debt to him. And I want to remind you, and here's why the liberals don't like Black History Month, because Garrett Morgan did all of that with a 7th grade education and no skill and no set-asides, Section 8 housing, welfare, food stamps, liberals out there with their arms folded saying, I feel sorry for you because you're a black man. You know, because your great-grandparents were slaves, I feel sorry for you. He didn't have any of that. In fact, at the time that Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light, there was institutionalized racism against African Americans. And despite that, he flourished. In fact, so much so that at one point another inventor needed to get his patent approved. And he couldn't do it unless he, quote, had a black man with him. He hired Garrett Morgan to do it for him. All right, let's see if we could talk to Gary in Alabama. Sorry to keep you waiting, Gary. What's on your mind on NEWSMAX TV?
Oh, Harry.
How are you?
Harry Wilson, Greensboro, Alabama.
Oh, Harry, I thought it was Gary. They called you Gary.
A while ago, and let me say, I agree with just about everything you have said. Not 100%. But I was thinking about the illegal immigration. Why couldn't Trump threaten to pass a recession that the Mexico has?
That would
if
be
we
great.
had the same law on immigration as they have, then how could they complain?
Well, that's
I live
just
in a
it.
predominantly black area, and I am sick of it, and I'm wanting to move.
It's called a double standard. We must behave a certain way on a higher level because of some high-minded, square-box, four-eyed geeks who tell us to, as opposed to everybody else. It's a double standard. It's one way for us, a different way for them. And I tell you, I'm sick of it. When Dr. King died on that cross of civil rights in 1968, he made everybody equal. That's how I look at it. But you know what? It's the liberals that don't want people to be equal. They want to bring down the anvil on American white Christians. They want to make them less equal for some reason. All right. We've got a little bit more to do, so don't go away. and we'll take more of your phone calls. 1-877-NEWSMAX. I'm Dick Farrell, in for Brent Winterbill. He'll be back on Monday, and I'll be back where I belong on Monday. Hope you make plans to join us both here on NEWSMAX TV, where there's always something going on. In just a moment, we're going to take a look at February 7th in history. I think we need to know more about our history. If you remember that lousy performance of the education plan that developed during the Obama administration, remember what it was called? Anybody remember what it was? Yeah, we forgot about it already. Our current Secretary of Education has done away with it. Thank goodness. Well, in the old days, they didn't want us learning any history after President Lincoln for some reason. But on this show, I'm going to highlight history of each and every day, and it's coming up. But right now, let's go to Henry. Henry is in New York on NEWSMAX TV. Good morning, Henry.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Good morning to you and my fellow Americans listening out there.
Hey, that's beautiful.
I have a couple questions. Maybe you can help me out. It's more of a fact-checking situation for me.
I'll do my best.
All right, sir. The Freedom of Information Act.
FOIA.
Is that a law? Is it an act? And how, if you're not following that and you're an official, are you breaking the law?
The Freedom of Information Act was created by Congress to allow the free flow of information and prevent the government from hiding things from the public. And it allows you, as a citizen, to apply for any and all federal documents and other government documents so that you can view them, provided, of course, they do not involve national security, at which point the government can say, sorry, you can't look at that. But the FOIA allows you to apply for permission to see information that the government would otherwise hide from you.
Okay. So when Umar Abedin testified that Hillary's server was down and wasn't working, and the State Department told her, well, just use the government line. And Umar Abedin testified, no, she refuses to do that because then we'd be subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Was she breaking the law?
No, but what she was doing was concealing information, and that's another reason why we suspect that something a little hanky-panky, something unclean was going on there, because of the way Mrs. Clinton and Mrs. Abedin conducted themselves. It's obvious that they were attempting to conceal something possibly sinister going on behind the backs of the American people.
Okay, good enough.
All right, glad you called. Oh yeah.
No, I'd like to ask you one more.
Feel free, go right ahead.
Okay. If I'm an American citizen,
which I think you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
5 generations worth.
You said so on the opening of your...
I'm an old man.
You opened your conversation with that, by the way. So, yes, American citizen, and what happens?
Yes. Now, if I was to apply as a foreign exchange student to gain entrance into one of our top universities, being an American citizen and saying, I'm from Kenya or something like that, would that be fraud?
It would be fraud if you didn't have any proof that you were from Kenya or some such place like that. But if you really wanted to do that, you could revoke your American citizenship, go to Zimbabwe, apply for citizenship there, and then come back and say, hey, I'm a Zimbabwean. You got to let me into school.
So, no, I mean, our old president, he proved through his birth certificate that, hey, he was an American citizen.
His birth certificate has never really been seen. No one has ever really seen his birth certificate.
He got into, was it Yale, I believe, right?
Columbia.
How did he get in there?
Columbia.
Because we'll never know because his college records have been sealed.
His college records are sealed. And there are people who went to Columbia when he says he graduated there who said they never saw him, never interacted with him, never recognized him. He was a stealth student at Columbia.
That's an amazing thing. And one more question for you, quick. during the great presidency of Ronald Reagan, he ordered not Rumsfeld.
The second greatest president.
He ordered Greenspan to fix Social Security. Do you remember that?
Yes, he did. He asked for his. He's during the entire Reagan administration, they were trying to fix Social Security.
Right.
Not just Greenspan, the House of Representatives, various secretaries of the Social Security Administration. They failed.
They didn't get it because I seem to, I could be wrong. That's why I'm glad to talk to you. Greenspan came back and says, well, we're going to raise the age from 65 to 67. We're going to create a $5 trillion trust fund, which will keep Social Security solvent.
Whatever happened to it, right? Whatever happened to it, right?
Well, I thought it was a big coincidence that, in a bipartisan fashion, out the door, when Clinton went out the door, there was $5 trillion sitting there in a surplus.
Well, not really a surplus.
For Bush Jr., just in time for Bush Jr. to come along and take $5 trillion and go, well, let's go to war.
Tell you what I'll do for you, Henry. I will research that and come back here tomorrow with a little more detail about that. How's that?
Yeah.
All right.
I just thought it was a great.
Have yourself a great day. I got to run. We're up against the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, now you hear me mention, I will be back tomorrow in for Brent Winterbill. Hope you can join me right here on NEWSMAX TV, a wonderful place where tomorrow we'll have 2 hours together, and it ought to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned next. We'll have a news update coming up and plenty more on NEWSMAX TV. Enjoy it.